Most people believe they're on track. They believe that someday, somehow, their efforts, their career, or their business will eventually build them the retirement they've been told to expect. But here's the truth few are willing to confront. Very few people ever reach 1 million in retirement savings. Not because they can't, but because they never trained their minds to think like people who can. Money, after all, doesn't grow from numbers. It grows from patterns. And the majority live inside patterns of avoidance, procrastination, and self-deception. They tell themselves, I'll save more later, but later never comes. Not because time disappears, but because discipline was never installed. And discipline, my friend, is never a product of luck. It's the byproduct of awareness. So, who really has $1 million saved for retirement? It's not the one who made the most money. It's not the one who got the perfect job or the highest degree. It's the one who understood the psychological cost of comfort and refused to pay it. The one who chose awareness over autopilot, clarity over confusion, and action over excuses. See, most people live as if financial security is a mathematical pursuit, as if it depends on earning more, finding better investments, or waiting for a market opportunity. But that's not how wealth works. Wealth mirrors psychology. Every dollar you save is a reflection of your internal belief about your future. Every dollar you spend impulsively reveals your level of emotional control. The few who make it to 1 million didn't just save, they redefined what money meant. For them, money wasn't about consumption, it was about creation. It wasn't about having more, it was about becoming more. They detached from the illusion that money would fix their emotions, and they started managing their emotions to fix their money. That's the shift. That's the transformation. When you look closely, the difference between the average saver and the wealthy isn't in opportunity, it's in identity. The average person identifies with being comfortable. The wealthy identify with being capable. One avoids discomfort, the other uses it as leverage. One sees saving as sacrifice, the other sees it as strategy. One waits for motivation, the other relies on structure. And here's the hardest truth, the one most never accept. If you can't manage tausend, you won't manage $100,000. The patterns don't change with scale, they scale with you. If your relationship with money is reactive, emotional, or filled with avoidance, the amount doesn't matter. A bigger number only magnifies your dysfunction. This is why most lottery winners lose it all, and why self-made millionaires almost never do. Reaching 1 million in savings isn't about a formula. It's about a frequency, a mental frequency of patience, clarity, and discipline. The people who get there don't chase returns. They build behaviors. They understand that markets fluctuate, jobs change, economies crash, but their psychology remains the constant. That's the only thing that truly compounds. The reason so few have that kind of security is because they never developed emotional security. They chase the comfort of consumption instead of the peace of preparation. They think in terms of weekends, not decades. And yet, deep down, they know, that voice inside knows, that the real freedom they want isn't found in spending, but in self-control. To build $1 million retirement, you must become the kind of person who doesn't need to be convinced to save. You don't wait for the right time. You decide this is the time. You don't wait for the market to be stable. You build your own stability. You don't pray for freedom. You practice it every day by making choices aligned with your future, not your impulses. Because here's the shocking truth, most people won't get there. Not because it's impossible, but because it's uncomfortable. And comfort is the most expensive addiction on earth. It costs people their growth, their discipline, their potential, and ultimately their freedom. So, who really has 100 million in retirement savings? The ones who mastered themselves before they mastered money. The ones who learned that saving isn't about sacrifice, it's about sovereignty. The ones who realize that the real asset isn't the money you make, it's the mindset you maintain. If you want to join the few, start where you are. Train your thoughts before you train your portfolio. Build habits before you build wealth. Because the moment you take control of your internal economy, your external one will follow. And that's when you'll understand that the shocking truth isn't how few have $1 million. It's how few ever believed they could. Most people believe wealth is something you collect, something you earn, store, and grow over time. They think it's a result of smart investments, high income, or the right financial advice. But that belief is precisely why most people will never experience true wealth. Because wealth in its purest form is not something you accumulate externally, it's something you cultivate internally. It's not an act of collection, it's an act of conditioning. wealth begins as an internal operating system. It's the programming that determines how you think, feel, and act in relation to money. You can have a six-figure salary and still live in scarcity if your mind hasn't been conditioned to create stability. You can inherit millions and still lose it all if you've never built the internal structure to manage abundance. Money doesn't stay with those who haven't built the mental and emotional framework to sustain it. That's why wealth is not about what you earn. It's about what you can hold without losing yourself. Every financial decision you make reflects your conditioning. When you save, when you invest, when you spend, when you panic, those choices don't emerge from logic alone. They emerge from the subconscious patterns built through years of emotional association with money. Some people associate money with safety, others associate it with fear, guilt, or power. These emotional associations silently dictate their behavior far more than any spreadsheet or budget ever could. Think about it: how many people start earning more yet still feel broke? Their income increases, but their financial anxiety doesn't fade. That's not an earning problem, that's conditioning. They've trained themselves to operate at the edge of their comfort zone. So, when more comes in, they subconsciously find ways to push it out. Through impulsive spending, unnecessary upgrades, or new forms of debt, just to return to the emotional state that feels familiar. Comfort is emotional, not financial. If your internal comfort zone is scarcity, you'll find a way to recreate it no matter how much money flows in. Real wealth is built when you break the emotional loop. When you stop reacting to money from your past conditioning and start responding from clarity. Most people grew up observing patterns of financial stress, scarcity, or disorganization. They saw their parents argue about bills. They heard messages like, "Money doesn't grow on trees," or "Rich people are greedy." Without realizing it, they internalize those beliefs. So even when opportunities appear, their mind filters them through those inherited limitations. They sabotage themselves without knowing it because their subconscious doesn't allow them to rise above what feels emotionally safe. Conditioning is powerful because it determines your thresholds, the limits of what you believe you can handle. If you've been conditioned to live paycheck to paycheck, having too much money might actually make you uncomfortable. Your nervous system doesn't recognize abundance as normal, so it tries to return to what feels familiar: chaos, urgency, or struggle. That's why so many people self-destruct the moment they experience a financial breakthrough. They think the problem is bad luck, but it's simply unconditioned success. To change your financial reality, you have to recondition your nervous system to feel safe in abundance. This doesn't happen by reading more books or chasing higher returns. It happens by becoming aware of your emotional triggers around money. When you receive more, what's your instinct? Do you want to spend it, hide it, or protect it? Each reaction reveals the emotional blueprint you've been carrying. The goal isn't to suppress those impulses, but to understand them. Because the moment you bring awareness to them, they lose their control over you. Wealth conditioning begins with discipline, but not the kind that feels forced. It's not about strict budgets or denying pleasure. It's about building habits that align your behavior with your higher goals, not your temporary emotions. When you decide to save a portion of every dollar you earn, you're not just growing your balance. You're rewiring your identity. You're teaching your mind that you are no longer controlled by impulses. Every act of consistency conditions the belief that you are capable of stability, and that belief compounds faster than any interest rate ever could. True wealth is less about accumulation and more about expansion, the expansion of emotional maturity, mental clarity, and identity. Because you can only attract and sustain the level of wealth that matches who you believe you are. If deep down you believe you're someone who struggles financially, then even when money arrives, you'll find ways to confirm that belief. You'll unconsciously seek experiences that match your self-concept. But when you recondition your mind to believe you are worthy of financial security, you start acting like someone who is, without effort, without tension, without needing to prove it. The rich don't save because they're afraid of being poor. They save because they understand the power of delayed gratification. They've conditioned themselves to view time differently. They don't chase instant pleasure because they've learned to derive satisfaction from long-term vision. This is one of the most profound distinctions between the wealthy and the average. The average person asks, "What can I get now?" The wealthy ask, "What can I build that lasts?" One lives from emotion, the other lives from awareness. You can't accumulate wealth sustainably until you change your internal frequency. You must train your mind to feel calm when money is growing slowly, not anxious. To feel confident during uncertainty, not fearful. Because the market, your job, or the economy will always fluctuate. Your conditioning determines whether you react or remain centered. Wealth isn't about eliminating risk, it's about eliminating emotional chaos. Every person who's built lasting wealth has gone through a transformation of self-concept. They stopped identifying as someone who needs to make money and started seeing themselves as someone who creates and sustains value. That shift changes everything. It alters the way you approach opportunity, the way you manage losses, and the way you handle growth. You stop chasing outcomes and start aligning with process. You begin to realize that consistency is more valuable than any sudden windfall. The truth is, you already have a relationship with money. You just might not be aware of it. And like any relationship, if it's built on fear, control, or resentment, it will never bring you peace. You have to rebuild trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your decisions, trust in your ability to adapt. This trust is the foundation of wealth conditioning. Because when you trust yourself, you no longer depend on external factors to feel secure. You stop reacting to circumstances and start creating them. When you hear that few people have a 1M in retirement, understand this, it's not because they lacked opportunity. It's because they never reconditioned their patterns. They believed more money would solve their problems, but money only amplifies who you already are. If you're undisciplined with 10, you'll be overwhelmed with the 10,000s. If you're fearful with 100, you'll panic with thousands. The variable isn't the money, it's you. To truly become wealthy, you must outgrow your emotional limitations. You must train your thoughts the way an athlete trains their body, with repetition, precision, and patience. You condition yourself to stay grounded during market downturns. You condition yourself to keep saving even when it feels pointless. You condition yourself to think long-term when the world screams for instant gratification. This kind of conditioning doesn't happen overnight, but once it takes root, it becomes unstoppable. Wealth conditioned at this level becomes identity. You no longer chase money because your habits automatically attract it. You no longer need to prove your worth because your results reflect it. And you no longer fear loss because you've built something stronger than money. You've built mastery. The truth is, everyone wants wealth, but few want to become the kind of person wealth belongs to. They want the rewards without the reconditioning. But until you align your internal state with abundance, wealth will continue to elude you. It will show up in glimpses, then disappear, not because the world is unfair, but because you haven't yet become emotionally congruent with having it. So, if you want to know why so few have 1M saved, it's not because of the economy or inflation. It's because the majority never trained their mind to hold wealth. They built careers, not conditioning. They focused on income, not identity. They chased accumulation, not alignment. But the good news is conditioning can be changed. It starts the moment you decide to stop reacting and start observing. The moment you stop asking, how do I make more? And start asking, who must I become to handle more? That single question separates those who live in survival from those who live in freedom. Wealth isn't something you stumble into. It's something you prepare for mentally. You don't get rich and then become disciplined. You become disciplined and then you get rich. You don't accumulate and then transform. You transform and then accumulation becomes natural. When you shift your focus from what you're trying to earn to who you're trying to become, you step into the rare mindset that very few ever reach. The kind that not only creates wealth but sustains it effortlessly. Because now, it's not a chase, it's a reflection of who you are. And that's when you finally understand wealth isn't accumulated. It's conditioned in thought, in habit, in emotion, and in identity. And once it's conditioned, it never leaves you. Your future is not written in your paycheck, it's written in your beliefs. You can earn 6 figures and still feel broke. You can double your income and still stay trapped in the same emotional state of financial struggle. The size of your paycheck only changes your circumstances. Your beliefs about money change your destiny. Until you change those beliefs, no raise, no promotion, and no investment return will ever make you truly wealthy. People love to believe that more income will solve their problems. They tell themselves, if I just made 20,000 more a year, everything would be fine. But that never happens. The numbers change, the stress remains. Why? Because the problem was never the amount. It was the meaning they attached to money. They were trying to fix a belief problem with a financial solution, and that never works. Money is neutral. It doesn't carry emotion, intention, or morality. It simply amplifies what already exists within you. If you feel scarcity now, more money will only magnify your scarcity. If you feel unworthy, more money will heighten your sense of fraudulence. But if you feel calm, capable, and deserving, more money will only expand those qualities. This is why your beliefs about money are more important than your income. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you believe. Look around. Two people can earn the exact same salary, yet their lives look completely different. One lives in constant anxiety, overspending, undersaving, and feeling trapped. The other lives with control, purpose, and security. The difference isn't income, it's interpretation. One sees money as a tool for expression and freedom, the other sees it as a weapon of fear and loss. The numbers are identical, but the beliefs transform the reality. The most dangerous money belief people carry is this: I'll feel secure when I have more. That single sentence keeps millions trapped in an endless chase. They work harder, grind longer, and sacrifice peace for numbers that never bring satisfaction. Because security doesn't come from money, it comes from trust. Trust in yourself, in your ability to handle whatever comes next. If you don't have that trust, no amount will ever feel enough. If you do have it, even a small amount feels like stability. Here's the truth: your financial reality always mirrors your internal dialogue about money. Every thought you've repeated to yourself about money, whether it's, "I'm not good with money," or "I can't afford that," or "money is hard to keep," becomes a command to your subconscious mind, and your subconscious is obedient. It doesn't argue. It simply fulfills what you continuously declare. If you keep believing that money is scarce, you'll subconsciously reject opportunities that could change your reality. You'll procrastinate, self-sabotage, or downplay your value just to stay consistent with that belief. Your beliefs act like a thermostat. No matter how high your external circumstances rise, your inner temperature will always pull you back to your comfort zone. If your belief is set at financial struggle, then even when abundance enters your life, you'll unconsciously find ways to return to that familiar level. That's why people who win the lottery often lose everything. Their external world expanded faster than their internal identity. They had the money, but not the beliefs to sustain it. If you want to change your financial future, you must start by confronting your money story. Everyone has one. It's the collection of emotional memories, cultural messages, and personal experiences that shaped how you relate to money. Maybe you grew up hearing that money causes problems. Maybe you saw your parents argue about bills. Maybe you were taught that rich people are selfish or dishonest. Those experiences built your subconscious blueprint, and now you're living inside it without realizing it. The tragedy is that most people never examine their beliefs, they just live by them. They repeat inherited ideas as if they were truth. They say, "I'm just not good with money," without realizing that's not a personality trait. It's a learned identity. They say, "Saving is hard," because they've conditioned themselves to associate discipline with deprivation. These aren't facts, they're choices made unconsciously and reinforced by repetition. The mind believes whatever it hears most often, even if it's wrong. The breakthrough comes when you realize you can reprogram that conditioning. You can rewrite your internal narrative about money. You can replace beliefs rooted in fear with beliefs rooted in possibility. It starts by observing your reactions. When you think about money, what emotions arise? Tension, shame, guilt, excitement. Those emotions are signals pointing toward your beliefs. The goal isn't to suppress them, it's to understand them. Because once you bring awareness to them, you can begin to detach from them. Let's be clear, your beliefs about money are not abstract ideas. They directly dictate your behavior. If you believe saving is impossible, you won't save. If you believe investing is risky, you'll never learn to invest. If you believe rich people are bad, you'll subconsciously resist becoming wealthy. Every action or inaction is a reflection of a belief trying to protect you from perceived danger. And until you change the underlying belief, your actions will never sustainably change. You don't need to fix your finances first. You need to fix your identity. Because your identity always leads your reality. You act in alignment with who you believe you are. If you believe you're a person who struggles financially, you'll make decisions that confirm it. But if you start believing you're someone who's capable, disciplined, and worthy of abundance, your actions will naturally shift. You'll start saving without forcing yourself. You'll look for opportunities without fear. You'll take responsibility for your outcomes instead of blaming circumstances. This is what separates people who build wealth from those who don't. Wealthy individuals see money as energy. something that flows in response to value, clarity, and consistency. They don't obsess over lack, they focus on alignment. They don't operate from fear, they operate from trust. They've trained their beliefs to see money as a partner, not a problem. And that partnership multiplies everything they touch. The reason so few people reach financial freedom is because they never upgrade their internal beliefs. They keep trying to earn their way out of fear instead of thinking their way out of it. They chase higher salaries, but stay emotionally tied to scarcity. They move from one job to another, one investment to the next, hoping the next number will bring peace. But peace doesn't come from what you earn, it comes from what you believe. Changing your money beliefs doesn't happen instantly. It's a process of consistent awareness and reconditioning. It begins with catching the language you use about money. Every time you say, "I can't afford that," you reinforce limitation. Instead, you can say, "That's not my priority right now." The first statement closes possibility, the second opens it. Every time you say, "Money is stressful," you strengthen anxiety. Instead, say, "I'm learning to create ease with money." Subtle changes in language create powerful shifts in energy. Beliefs change when they're challenged by new evidence. If you've always believed you're bad with money, start keeping track of small wins. Save a small amount consistently. Pay off a minor debt. Notice the evidence of progress. Your mind needs proof to update its programming. The more proof you provide, the faster your identity shifts. Over time, you'll start to see yourself differently, not as someone who tries to manage money, but as someone who's naturally in control. The moment your beliefs align with abundance, your actions follow effortlessly. You'll notice that saving feels natural, investing feels intuitive, and opportunities seem to appear more often. That's not magic, that's focus. When you stop operating from fear, your mind becomes available to recognize possibility. You start seeing opportunities that were invisible before because your beliefs were filtering them out. This is why so many people live in a loop. They earn, they spend, they regret, they repeat. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they're trapped inside unexamined beliefs. They think they have money problems, but what they really have are belief problems. Once you fix the belief, the behavior follows automatically. Your beliefs are the foundation of your financial destiny. They determine how you respond to loss, how you handle success, and how you interpret uncertainty. A person who believes money is abundant will stay calm during a market crash. A person who believes money is scarce will panic, sell everything, and confirm their own fears. The same event, two completely different outcomes, determined entirely by belief. We often underestimate how powerful our inner dialogue is. Every thought you think about money either builds your future or limits it. When you say, "It's hard to make money," your brain stops looking for ways to make it easier. When you say, "Money flows to me through value," your brain starts seeking evidence to support that. The mind is always working to prove your beliefs true. So choose beliefs worth proving. Wealth doesn't start with a paycheck, it starts with permission. Permission to see yourself as worthy of more. Permission to detach from the old story of struggle. Permission to believe that you can create stability even if you've never had it before. When you give yourself that permission, your mind stops resisting abundance. It begins to accept it as your new normal. And once something becomes normal in your mind, it becomes inevitable in your life. When you understand this truth, money stops being a source of tension and becomes a tool for transformation. You stop measuring yourself by your current balance and start measuring yourself by your capacity to grow. Because your income is temporary, but your identity is permanent. Build the right beliefs, and your future will always expand to match them. So, stop asking, "How do I make more?" and start asking, "What do I believe about money right now?" That question will reveal everything. Because your future wealth is already being shaped, not by your paycheck, but by the quiet beliefs running in the background of your mind. If you want to create a different future, you must become aware of those beliefs and rewrite them consciously, not someday. Not after your next raise, but now. Because every thought you have about money is a vote for the kind of future you're building. And if you keep choosing the same beliefs, you'll keep creating the same reality. Change the belief, and the numbers will follow. Every single time. Because your paycheck reflects your profession, but your beliefs reflect your potential. And potential, once activated, always outgrows any number printed on a check. Most people think financial freedom is about money, about having enough in the bank, enough investments, enough passive income to stop worrying. They think freedom comes from numbers. But it doesn't. Financial freedom doesn't begin when you have a certain amount of money. It begins when money stops controlling your emotions. It begins the moment your happiness, security, and self-worth are no longer dependent on a number in your account. Emotional dependency is the silent chain that keeps most people financially enslaved. You can be earning six figures and still feel trapped. You can have a savings account, a portfolio, and a steady income, and still wake up every morning with the weight of anxiety pressing on your chest. Because money has become the mirror through which you measure your value. And as long as your emotions fluctuate with your balance, you are not free. You are owned by what you think you own. We are conditioned from an early age to believe that money equals safety, that the more we have, the more secure we are. But that's an illusion. Money can give comfort, not safety. Comfort fades the moment your beliefs are shaken, the market drops, or something unexpected happens. True safety comes from your ability to stay calm in uncertainty, to trust yourself when things are unstable. That emotional steadiness is the real foundation of freedom, because when your emotions are stable, your decisions are rational. When your emotions are unstable, your decisions are reactive, and reactive decisions destroy wealth faster than any bad investment ever could. Financial freedom isn't achieved through control, it's achieved through detachment. The goal isn't to stop caring about money, it's to stop depending on it to define your peace. When you depend on money emotionally, it owns you. When you detach from it emotionally, you own it. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means clarity. It means you can make decisions based on logic, not fear. It means you can experience loss without panic and success without arrogance. Think about it, most people's financial lives are emotional roller coasters. When their investments go up, they feel powerful, optimistic, and secure. When they go down, they feel fear, anger, or shame. They let external numbers dictate their internal state. But freedom means your emotions stay constant while your numbers fluctuate. It means you understand that market movements, economic shifts, or short-term losses don't define your worth or your future. The reason so few people ever achieve lasting financial freedom is because they chase money to heal emotional wounds. They use money to fill voids of insecurity, fear, and inadequacy. They think money will make them feel worthy, respected, or safe. But the truth is, money doesn't fix emotional wounds. It magnifies them. If you feel insecure without money, you'll still feel insecure with it. You'll just have nicer surroundings. If you feel unworthy without money, you'll spend it trying to prove your worth. If you feel unloved, you'll use it to buy validation. Emotional dependency transforms money from a tool into a drug, a temporary escape that always wears off. Freedom begins when you stop expecting money to do what only self-awareness can do. When you stop asking money to give you confidence and start cultivating confidence within yourself. When you stop chasing approval through your possessions and start deriving fulfillment through growth. Because the truth is, no amount of external achievement can compensate for internal emptiness. You can't buy peace of mind. You can only earn it through emotional maturity. This is why financial freedom is an inside-out process. You can't build it by manipulating your external circumstances. You build it by mastering your internal world. The moment you learn to regulate your emotions, you gain the ability to handle financial ups and downs without losing balance. You become unshakable. That's real wealth, not a number, but a state of mind. When you're emotionally dependent on money, you make decisions from fear. You hoard when you should invest. You chase risky returns when you should be patient. You overreact to losses and undervalue opportunities. Fear distorts perception. It blinds you to long-term vision. But when you detach emotionally, you make decisions from clarity. You see things as they are, not as you fear them to be. You don't chase, you position. You don't react, you respond. That difference is everything. Emotional dependency creates chaos. Emotional detachment creates consistency. And consistency is the secret ingredient in every financial success story. The people who build lasting wealth are not the ones who feel nothing. They're the ones who've trained their emotions to stay centered when things get uncertain. They don't let euphoria make them reckless, and they don't let fear make them timid. They've learned that freedom isn't having everything go your way, it's knowing you'll be okay even when it doesn't. The truth is, money reflects your emotional state. If you live in constant worry, your financial world will mirror that chaos. If you live with calm, clarity, and discipline, your financial world will mirror that order. The reason this happens is simple. Your emotions influence your behavior, and your behavior builds your results. If fear drives you, you'll avoid learning, avoid risk, and avoid accountability. If confidence drives you, you'll take calculated risks, seek growth, and move with purpose. To achieve financial freedom, you have to replace emotional dependency with emotional intelligence. You have to learn to feel your emotions without being controlled by them. You have to observe your fears, your urges, your impulses, and choose discipline instead of reaction. When you feel the urge to buy something just to feel good, pause. Ask yourself, am I buying this to improve my life or to escape my emotions? When you feel the fear of loss rising, ask, am I reacting to the numbers or to my insecurity? That awareness breaks the cycle. People think financial literacy is about understanding investments, markets, and returns. But the highest form of financial literacy is emotional literacy, knowing how your feelings influence your financial choices. If you can master that, you can thrive in any market, under any condition, because you've stopped letting external volatility dictate your internal peace. Freedom isn't about having so much money that you never have to think about it again. It's about reaching a point where you can think about it without emotional turbulence, where you can make decisions from logic, not desperation, where you can pursue opportunity without fear and handle loss without collapse. When you reach that state, money becomes what it was always meant to be, a servant, not a master. Ask yourself this: do you own your emotions, or do your emotions own you? Because that's the real test of freedom. It's not about how much you have, it's about how much control you've built within yourself. You can't buy discipline. You can't purchase peace. Those are internal currencies, and they're far more valuable than dollars. The path to financial freedom is a journey of emotional detachment and self-trust. You must reach a place where you no longer need external validation to feel valuable, where you no longer let fear dictate your pace or greed distort your vision. You must build the kind of calm that doesn't crumble under pressure. That calm becomes your capital. It allows you to stay steady when everyone else is panicking. And in that steadiness, opportunities appear. Because money flows to stability, it avoids chaos. If your emotions are erratic, your financial world will be too. But if your emotions are grounded, you create an energy that attracts stability in income, investments, and outcomes. Emotional independence doesn't mean you never feel fear again. It means you no longer obey it. It means you acknowledge fear, but you don't surrender to it. You listen to it as information, not instruction. You begin to see that money is just energy. It flows where attention and discipline meet. When you stop emotionally chasing it, it starts gravitating toward you. Most people think they need financial freedom to feel emotionally free. But it's the opposite. You need emotional freedom to achieve financial freedom. You need to release the mental noise that says, I'll be happy when I have more, or I'll feel safe when I hit this number. Because the truth is, if you can't find peace now, you won't find it then. Numbers don't create peace. Perspective does. Financial freedom is the ability to make decisions without fear controlling you. It's the confidence to take calculated risks, the patience to wait through uncertainty, and the humility to know that losing money doesn't mean losing identity. The people who reach true freedom are those who have learned to manage themselves better than they manage their accounts. They understand that mastering emotions is mastering money. When emotional dependency ends, you stop chasing validation through material things. You stop spending to impress, comparing to compete, or saving out of fear. You start living from authenticity. You make choices that align with your values, not your insecurities. And in that alignment, money begins to serve you rather than enslave you. You realize that the ultimate goal was never money itself. It was the peace you thought money would bring. Once you understand that, you stop waiting for peace and start creating it now. You save because it builds stability, not because you're afraid. You invest because it represents growth, not because you're desperate for returns. Every decision becomes lighter, cleaner, more intentional. That's what financial freedom feels like. Not excitement, but calm. And when you reach that point, the paradox becomes clear: the less you emotionally need money, the easier it is to make and keep. Because you've removed the resistance. You've stopped turning money into a symbol of worth or fear. You've started seeing it as it is, a neutral tool for expansion. And once you do, abundance flows naturally. So remember this: the end of emotional dependency is the beginning of financial freedom. Not when your income rises, not when your debts are gone, but when your emotions stop rising and falling with your finances. When you stop treating money as a reflection of who you are and start using it as a reflection of what you value. That's when money stops being a master and starts being a mirror. One that reflects the calm, confidence, and clarity you've built within. That's when you're truly free. Financial freedom isn't about how much money you have. It's about how much peace you can maintain regardless of money. The moment you stop letting emotions dictate your financial choices, you reclaim your power. True wealth isn't measured by numbers, but by stability, clarity, and control. When you detach from fear, greed, and validation, money becomes effortless. It flows to those who no longer chase it. Freedom begins not with accumulation, but with mastery of self. Because once you no longer depend on money to feel safe, you've already become rich.